Take a listen to something here that Keith Richards had to say about Elvis Presley, and stick around because what Keith Richards says here is extremely important to what's going on in hard rock and heavy music today. So let's listen into what Keith Richards had to say about Elvis Presley right here.
Sam Phillips is the guy that made the record, Sun Records. Elvis fantastically fell into place with an incredible band. Bill Black on bass, Scotty Moore on guitar. There are no drums on this record.
Right. I didn't realize that.
This is a rock and roll record and no drums.
What do you make of that? That is brilliant, right?
It's rhythm, and it's like rock and roll doesn't necessarily need the whole battery of drums in it.
Right.
It's a totally different thing. It's feel. It's got to do with when to not hit.
So according to Richards, the real genius behind Elvis Presley and the birth of rock and roll was Sam Phillips, the founder of Sun Records, the man who understood that rhythm, silence, and space could create movement even without drums. That is in a nutshell what Keith Richards was saying there. But let's clarify for a moment what he wasn't saying. He wasn't saying that Elvis lacked talent. He wasn't saying that Elvis didn't change music, and he certainly wasn't saying that Elvis didn't matter. But what he was saying is there is a creative center of gravity sometimes with musicians and performers that's hard to see, and that's what we're going to talk about right here. Sam Phillips didn't just record Elvis, he constructed a feeling. Phillips understood something deeply musical and deeply rare. Rhythm doesn't require density, movement can exist in absence. Early Elvis records often feel like they're breathing. There's space, there's tension, there's anticipation. Phillips used silence as punctuation, sparse arrangements as propulsion, the implied beat instead of the obvious one. And that restraint gave Elvis room to exist as a force of nature. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth that Keith Richards is getting to. Elvis wasn't a songwriter. Elvis wasn't an improviser. Elvis didn't really construct melodies or harmonic language. What Elvis was an overwhelming, charismatic physical presence. His timing, his phrasing, his ability to inhabit a song instantly. Elvis didn't invent the material, he embodied it, and that is a very specific role. In fact, it's a role that popular music today has begun to embrace again. So, Sam Phillips wasn't alone. Music history is full of moments where the producer functions as the editor, the architect, the emotional curator. Think about Quincy Jones, or George Martin, or Rick Rubin. In each case, the artist is the voice, but the producer is often the grammar. The public tends to remember the face. The industry remembers the system. Take someone like Billie Eilish. Her voice, her presence, her identity are unmistakable, but the sonic intelligence comes from the production partnership. So Phineas understands space, silence, minimalism, emotional contrast, just like Sam Phillips did. And in hip-hop, this model is even more explicit. Artists often function as vessels of identity, while producers create entire universes of sound, rhythm without excess, power through suggestion. The performer becomes the interface between listener and design. So this is why all of this matters for rock, because rock music went through a long phase where songwriting and instrumental virtuosity and improvisation were treated as requirements. But historically, that's not how rock music began. And as music culture continues to cycle, it's very possible that hard rock's next revival won't come from guitar heroes trying to create their own songs, but from charismatic performers paired with visionary producers. Now, the question is this actually a step backward? Is it a return to origin? Or is it a step into the future using the past as a springboard? Was Keith Richards right about Elvis? I think so, but not in the way that you might think at first, because Elvis was a genius at performance and Sam Phillips was a genius of construction. When those two things align, music history bends, and understanding that this was a cooperative effort doesn't diminish Elvis. It actually makes his impact more understandable and, in fact, more repeatable. So here's the question I leave to you. Do you think Keith Richards was right about Elvis? Do you see any modern artists who are true performers in the Elvis tradition and who have Sam Phillips-like figures behind them, shaping their sound behind the scenes. Let me know in the comments.
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.